So we are reading Zero Limits by Joe Vitale and Dr. Hugh Lin. We are on chapter 11, Skeptical Minds Want to Know. And we are on page 137 of the book and 137 of the PDF. You have to unmute, Shivanga.
Skeptical minds want to know. The purpose of life is to be restored back to love, moment to moment. To fulfill this purpose, the individual must acknowledge that he is 100% responsible for creating his life the way it is. He must come to see that it is his thoughts that create his life the way it is, moment to moment. The problems are not people, places, and situations, but rather the thoughts of them. He must come to appreciate that there is no such thing as out there. Dr. Halekala Hugh Lin.
So now he is talking about four things over here. Number one, that the purpose of life is to be restored to zero. Or if you look at it from the Vedantic principle, it is to get moksha, number one. Number two, we must acknowledge that we are 100% responsible. So we are responsible for creating our reality. We are responsible for creating whatever is manifesting around us, right? And our thoughts are creating it. So we must, by moment to moment, be aware of our thoughts. Number three, the issue is not the problem. Whatever situation you are is not the problem. The thoughts or the perception you have about it is the basic problem. Now, we had this very funny incident in the institute when I was there for, I was not there. This was shared by another group, another trainer. He said that in one program, there was a very, very beautiful lady who was attending the program. And she was complaining that she was not having any experiences and all that she was seeing was black for the first 3 days of the program. On the fourth day, it turned out that because she was so attractive, all the men were getting disturbed by her. So they put her into the ECB, right? And now since all of them had put her into the ECB, now she is not having any experiences. Now, ultimately, the trainer told all the people that is it the lady who's creating a problem for you, or is it the thoughts about her that are creating the problem for you? So we need to put our thoughts into the energy conversion box. And if you look at your life also, most of the time, the issue is not the problem. Your thoughts about the issue are your problem. Now, for example, let us say a near and dear one stays in America and you are in India. Now that person who's in America is not well, for example, right? And you don't know about it. Will you be worried? You're not going to be worried because you don't know about it. Now, the moment you get to know that the person is unwell, that is when you start worrying about it. Now, the incident has already happened. If it is not in your awareness, then it is not going to worry you. But the moment it comes into your awareness, so you have a thought about it, that is when the problem starts to get created. Okay. So now it's very important to understand that our issues are created by our own thoughts. It is not the issue which is creating the problem. And number four, he must come to appreciate that there is no such thing as out there, because our experience is created by ourselves. So there is nothing out there. It is all internal. Everything is happening the way that we have created it, right? So everything is happening inside us. It is actually not happening outside. So again, when you look at the Ho'oponopono principle, what is the basic principle? That what is occurring to you, you clear that. What is happening in your field, you keep clearing that. And as you clear that, because it is a consensual reality, you start affecting the entire reality that is manifesting around you.
As I mentioned earlier in this book, I wrote an article called The World's Most Unusual Therapist and posted it on my blog. I added it to my website at www.mrfire.com as well. It was also published in a book by David Ricklin, 101 Great Ways to Improve Your Life. This article became the most widely distributed and talked about article I had ever written. People posted it on news groups, forwarded it to friends, sent it to their personal and public email lists, and more. Apparently, the message in it was inspiring everyone. It was that very article that got the attention of my publisher, John Wiley and Sons, and led to my writing this book for you. But not everyone loved the article. A few people couldn't believe that anyone, even a psychologist, could help heal mentally ill criminals in a hospital. One person wrote to Dr. Hewlin and demanded proof. The person wanted to know the facts about Dr. Hewlin's experience in that mental hospital. So did I, truth be known. Here's what Dr. Hewlin wrote as a detailed reply. The story, as most stories go, needs clarification. It is true that I spent several years as a fee-paid service staff psychologist at Hawaii State Hospital, a psychiatric facility operated by the Hawaii State Health Department. I spent 3 years from 1984 to 1987 as the staff psychologist, 20 hours a week in a high security unit housing male patients who had committed criminal acts of murder, rape, drug use, and assault, and battery against people and property. When I entered the high security unit in 1984 as the staff psychologist, all seclusion rooms were occupied with violent patients. On any given day on the unit, there were several patients in metal restraints around their ankles and wrists to prevent violence against others. Violence in the unit by patients against patients and patients against staff was a common occurrence. Patients were not intimately involved in their care and rehabilitation. There were no in-unit rehabilitative work activities. There was no off-unit activities, recreation, or work. Visits by families on the unit were extremely rare. No patients were allowed off the high security unit without written permission by the psychiatrist and only with ankle and wrist restraints. The stay in the unit by a typical patient ran into years. The cost be, I believe, around $30,000 a year then. Staff sick leave ran extremely high on the ward. The physical environment of the unit was drab and somewhat run down. The unit staff was composed of basically wonderful and caring people. What I have described is probably typical of most psychiatric units elsewhere in the country. When I left the unit and facility in July 1987, seclusion rooms were no longer in use, wrist and ankle restraints were no longer in use, violent acts were extremely rare, usually involving new patients. Patients were responsible for their own care, including arranging residential, work, and legal services before leaving the unit and the facility. Off-unit recreational activities such as jogging and tennis were ongoing, not requiring approval by a psychiatrist or the use of ankle and wrist restraints. Off-unit work activities were begun, such as car washing without the approval of a psychiatrist or the use of ankle and wrist restraints. On-unit work consisted of baking cookies and polishing shoes. Visits in the unit by family were taking place. Staff sick leave was not a chronic problem. The unit environment greatly improved with painting and maintenance, and because people cared. The unit staff was more involved in supporting patients to be 100% responsible for themselves. The turnaround time for patients from admission to leaving the hospital was greatly reduced to months instead of years. The quality of life for both patients and staff shifted dramatically from being custodial to one of family, people caring for one another.
So a complete shift, right? From the left side of the grid totally to the right side of the grid. So everything simply just cleared up.
What did I do for my part as the unit staff psychologist? I did the self-identity through Ho'oponopono process of repentance, forgiveness, and transmutation for whatever was going on in me that I experienced consciously and unconsciously as problems before, during, and after leaving the unit each time. I did not do any therapy or counseling with patients on the unit. I did not attend any staff conference on patients. I took 100% responsibility for myself to clean with the stuff in me that caused me problems as staff psychologist. I am a creation of the I am, perfect as is with everyone and everything. What is imperfect is the memories that react, replay as judgment, resentment, anger, irritation, and God knows the rest of the dash that is carried of the soul. Peace of I, Ihalikala Yulin, PhD Chairman Emeritus, the Foundation of I, Inc., Freedom of the Cosmos.
So clearly, basically, what was he doing? He was clearing himself. Anything that was coming up in his conscious awareness, he was simply clearing himself. And that resulted in the clearing of the entire psychiatric ward.
Though I was still learning Ho'oponopono, I sometimes taught it to others if I felt they were open to hear about it. Of course, their being open was a reflection of me, not them. The clearer I became, the clearer the people around me became. But that's a tough fact to accept. It's so much easier to want to change the outer than the inner.
So this is very important over here. The clearer I became, the clearer the people around me became. So this is something that we are noticing all around, right? The more clear you become, the more in equanimity you are, the more in balance you are, you automatically start to reflect this balance in the environment around you. So wherever you walk in, you'll find things start to systemize. This is what used to happen, or this was the reason that we used to invite people of spiritual caliber into our house. The idea was that hamara ghar ka shuddhi ho jayega, that if they walked into our house, the vibrational environment in our house used to shift. So if we assume that they are operating out of total clarity, and because they are operating out of total clarity, then it automatically starts to clear the environment wherever they may be by themselves. Okay, so it very clearly says the clearer I became, the clearer my entire environment and everything started to become.
In Maui, a realtor drove us around to look at houses. Along the way, we did a lot of talking about healing, spirituality, the movie The Secret, and personal growth. It was all interesting, but something enlightening took place on one segment of our drive. The realtor had read my now famous article on Dr. Hewlin and the Ho'oponopono Hawaiian healing process he used to heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals. Like everyone else, the realtor found the article inspiring. Like everyone else, he didn't quite understand it. As we drove around the beautiful island of Maui, I listened to the realtor complain about a house he couldn't sell. The buyer and seller were fighting over it, causing a lot of anger, resentment, and more. The sale was caught up in their bickering and wasn't going to close anytime soon. The realtor was obviously frustrated by their actions. I listened for a while and then felt inspired to speak up. Would you like to know how Dr. Hewlin might handle this situation using Ho'oponopono? I asked. Yes, the realtor exclaimed, obviously curious. I'm definitely interested. Tell me. This ought to be good, Nerissa said. Well, I'm not Dr. Hewlin, I began, but I'm writing a book with him and I've trained with him, so I think I know how he might handle this. Tell me. What Dr. Hewlin does is look within himself to see what is within him that is sharing the experience he sees on the outside. I began. When he worked at that mental hospital, he looked at the patient's charts, whether he felt repulsion at their acts or something else. He didn't deal with the person, he dealt with the feelings he experienced. As he cleared what was within him, they began to get clear and heal.
So,
Like this, the
so this
reality.
is so this is very important, right? So, doctor here, in what does he look? He looks within himself to see what within him is sharing that experience. Now, this is going one step deeper. What we've been talking about till now is that what is occurring in your field. So now he's taking it one step deeper and saying that what within him is actually sharing that experience that you're experiencing in your field, and then working at a deeper level to see the feelings that are being generated and clearing those particular feelings. So when we even talk about it in the workshops, we say you have the small guy and then you have the big guy. Everything is coming out of the big guy, but we feel that the small guy is doing everything, right? So when we are noticing what is occurring in our field, it is occurring and we are noticing it with the small guy, not the big guy. Okay, now the moment we go one step deeper, that what within me is creating that thing, then we've gone into our subconscious mind because it's being created by us. So we are going into a deeper state and then we are going to start dealing with it.
I like this, the realtor said. Most people have no idea what responsibility means, I continued. They are into blame. As they grow and become more aware, they begin to consider that they are responsible for what they say and do. Beyond that, as you become even more aware, you can begin to realize that you are responsible for what everyone says or does, simply because they are in your experience. If you create your own reality, then you created all you see, even the parts you don't like.
So, so again over here, as we grow, one second. As we grow, as we start becoming more aware, we start operating from a higher state of consciousness. We start really understanding that everything that is happening around us, we are responsible for and we are the creators. So anything that is happening, giving justification or for that matter, blaming just does not work. And as soon as you give justification or you start blaming, you get on the left side of the grid. And the idea is to be on the right side. And that can only happen when you start taking 100% responsibility for whatever is happening around you.
The realtor was smiling, nodding his head. I kept talking. It doesn't matter what the buyer or seller does in this situation. I said, it matters what you do. What Dr. Hewlin does is simply repeat, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. He doesn't say it to the people. He says it to the divine. The idea is to clear the shared energy. I'll do this, the realtor said. But you don't do it to get something, I went on. You do it because it's how we clear the shared energy so no one has to experience it again, ever. It's a cleansing and you never stop doing it.
Now, this is very, very important, right? So he says it doesn't matter what the other guy is doing. It matters what you are doing. And then in the next paragraph, he says that what is the state of consciousness with which you are doing? You're not doing something to get something. You're doing it to clear yourself so that you get clarity and you allow whatever needs to manifest to start to manifest, right? So now, if you are looking to get something, then what is happening? What is the state of consciousness that you're operating from? Now, when we go into the scale of consciousness that we talk about from Dr. Hawkins, you will find that if you are wanting to get something, you are below 200. And if you are operating from love and above, right, then there is no question of your wanting to get something out of what you're doing. You're just wanting to clear yourself so that you can become that clarion tone, which takes you into that state of consciousness where you become zero. So the idea is to clear yourself. It is never to get something. If you're wanting to get something, then again, there is a selfishness, there's that jealousy, there's that greed. All those factors will start coming into play.
I paused. The realtor seemed to get it. His eyes were wide and his smile was big. If it comes up in your awareness, I continued, then it's up for you to clean and heal. Since you brought the situation of the buyer and seller to my attention, then I have to clean on it too. It's now part of my life experience. If I'm the creator of my experience, then this is something I'm responsible for too.
So now this becomes very important, right? So whatever is coming into your awareness, you become responsible for. So you cannot leave being responsible for anything that is happening with you or is occurring to you. So what are you noticing? What are you experiencing becomes so important in all our lives.
I let all of this sink in as we continued our drive to look at other homes in mind. A few days later, I received an email from the realtor. He said he was continuing to use the Dr. Hewlin process. That's how it works. It's all love, it's continuous, and you're totally responsible. One day, I taught a seminar with Mindy Hurt, who runs the Wimberley, Texas Unity Church. It was called The Secret of Money. Later in it, I taught everyone the Ho'oponopono method of cleaning. Afterwards, one gentleman came up and said, I have a problem saying I'm sorry and please forgive me. Why? I asked. I had never heard this before. I was curious. I can't imagine a loving God or divinity who needs my asking for forgiveness, he said. I don't think the divine has to forgive me for anything. I thought about it and later knew the reply I should have given him. You aren't saying those statements to be forgiven by the divine. Sorry. You aren't saying those statements to be forgiven by the divinity. You're saying them to clean yourself. You say them to divinity, but they are to clean you. In other words, the divine is already showering love on you. It has never stopped. At the zero state, where there are zero limits, the closest we can describe it is as a state of pure love. It's there, but you're not. So by saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, you are cleaning the programs in you that are preventing you being at the pure state, love. Again, the divine doesn't need you to do Ho'oponopono, but you need to do it.
So, so one thing that we have seen when we are going into the higher focus levels, whatever encounters are taking place and whatever the feedback that we are getting is that in those expanded states, everything is operating out of infinite compassion, infinite love. They are there to support you in your growth, in your development, right? And they are there to help you to experience whatever you need to experience in your life to fulfill your particular life purpose. Now, if you are wanting to do something, they're not going to interfere with you the way that you would like to do it, right? So they are all the time operating out of that compassion, out of that love. So naturally, you don't have to say sorry to them for anything, literally anything, right? Because you are already forgiven as far as that divinity is concerned. But because we want to get into that state, into that same vibratory frequency that divinity is operating at, we need to keep clearing ourselves. So the idea is to clear ourselves. You know, I keep repeating this term, jhadu marna. We have to jhadu maro all the facades, all the unnecessary baggage, all the unnecessary memories that we are carrying around with us, which is not serving us. We simply have to drop everything that puts us on the left side of the grid. And one of the ways to do it is to clear it. So if it is getting cleared, then we are no longer carrying it, right? So again, I keep repeating the term rocks in our backpack. We are carrying a burden on our backs, which we really don't need to carry. So the more we clear and clean, the better off we automatically become.
Recently, I received a heart-wrenching email from a dear friend of mine. She asked, what would you say to someone who has been reading your book, who watched The Secret, who reads your blog every day, who does her best, yet is still broke, unhappy, and failing? I keep having problem after problem. It never ends. What would you say? I felt her pain. After all, at one point I was homeless. I struggled in poverty for a decade. My overnight success probably took 20 years to occur. I know what it's like to feel you're stuck in quicksand.
So when we see people who are successful, we just see them as successful. We really don't understand what is the life experiences that those people have actually gone through to reach that pinnacle of success. Also, when we look at them as successful, we really don't know what is going on in their life, right? Most of the big houses that I have gone to have so many issues going on that it is not funny. The point is that we are looking at things from our perception and what is occurring to us. So ultimately, again, we come back to the same thing that we need to keep clearing. So what is the state of consciousness with which you are looking at those people? Again, we need to be aware of. So in this case, she was having a hard time in her life.
What would you say to such a person? In the past, I would offer solutions. I would say, read The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. Watch the movie The Secret 7 times. Create a scenario of how you want life to be. Take time every day to meditate. Work on self sabotage issues. But that's the frontal approach to change. I've learned, and Dr. Hewlin will attest, that that approach rarely works. So, what's left? How do you or me or anyone else, someone stuck and in pain, sorry, how do you or me or anyone help someone stuck and in pain? According to Ho'oponopono, the only way is by cleaning myself. People who come before me, including the one who wrote me, are sharing a program with me. They caught it like a virus of the mind. They aren't to blame. They feel trapped or cornered. I can throw them a rope, but more often than not, they won't use it, or they'll use it to hang themselves.
So, so this is also again very, very important point that he's raised here. If you go out to help someone, then the person 9 out of 10 times will not take the help, right? What we need to do is to clear ourselves because it has come into our awareness. You clear yourself of whatever has come into your your perception, and then you'll see that the other guy automatically starts to heal or improve, right? Your again I'm stressing, your job is to keep clearing yourself. You are not being able to clear the other person. And this is something that I've been finding when we are doing biofield tuning also. More and more, I'm started to notice that I'm literally clearing what's happening in me and not in the other person. The moment I clear it in me, the other person automatically feels the effect. And this is happening over and over again. Having said that, if you follow the same process, again, I use the aloo jeera example. If you're following an aloo jeera process, you can never expect aloo dum. So now that is something that we need to realize for ourselves. And all of us need to realize that if we are doing the same thing, and this is again where patterns come up. If you have patterns in your life, the point is that you need to pay attention and clear the pattern, because the pattern is like a stuck record player and it's going to keep you in the position that you are in. It's not going to allow you to progress.
So, what do? All I can do is clean me. As I clean me, they get cleaned. As we clean the programs we share, they get lifted from all humankind. This is all I do these days. It's what Dr. Hewlin first told me he did on that first phone call we had so long ago. All I do is clean, clean, clean. All I do is say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. The rest is up to divinity. I don't think this is heartless, but instead, the most heartfelt thing I can do. And it's what I'm doing right now, even as I write these words.
So again, the point here is very, very clear, right? That we just need to clear ourselves. And this is exactly what we are doing when we are using the reball also. We are going into an altered state, setting an intent, and then releasing it in that intent. Now, as we are going into an altered state, we are automatically clearing ourselves. And with our intent, again, that is clearing us also. So when we set that intent over there, we give a request to divinity to do what needs to be done, to create a win-win situation, to create the best to manifest. That is the ultimate caveat with all the reballs that we are sending out, right? So it's exactly the same over here. We are petitioning the divine to do whatever is necessary to clear the field, to clear us. And if we clear, then automatically the other guy's field also automatically clears up.
Finally, consider the spiritual punchline. Since the story of this person who wrote me is now part of your experience, that means it is up for you to heal as well. After all, if you create your own reality, then you had to create this situation too, as it is now part of your reality. I suggest you use the I love you statements to heal this. As you heal yourself, the person who wrote me and everyone else who shares that program will get better.
So, so the basic raw fact, and this is coming up in the Vedanta talks also, is that anything that comes into your life, any kind of experience that is coming into your life is meant for your greater good. So the fact that something has come into your awareness means that you have to work with it, or it is important for you to work with it so that you need to transcend it. Otherwise, it would not have come into your awareness at all. There is some kind of a resonance. There is some vasana over there, which is manifesting that in your life. And at the end, when you look at it from the Vedantic principle, the idea is to transcend all your vasanas, whether it be prarabdha or it be sanchit vasanas. We want to clear everything out of the system.
Choice is a limitation. We can appeal to divinity who knows our personal blueprint for healing of all thoughts and memories that are holding us back at this time. Morna Simona.
So we get in our own way, right? Maybe because of free will, because of the choices that we are making, we are using the small guy to make a choice when the big guy actually knows much more, right? So the idea is, because the blueprint, like today, if you're going to make a house, first you will make a blueprint of the house, you will make a drawing, and then you'll give it to the contractor. Now, if something is wrong in the blueprint, we can never expect that the house will come out right. Okay. And divinity, this is the big guy, knows your blueprint. So if you allow that person to be the driver, that automatically becomes much better for us. In the OBE program, William Bullman clearly indicates this, that in the beginning, when he was having his out-of-body experiences, he was attempting to drive the experience. And then he handed over charge to his higher self. And that's when the magic started to happen, right? So divinity is our higher self. If we can hand over charge to divinity, then automatically things start to work in our life.
Dr. Hewlin flew to Austin, Texas to spend a few days with me in October 2006. When I picked him up at the airport, we instantly began talking about life, God, programs, cleaning, and more. He asked what I was up to these days. I told him how excited I am. There's a movie where a character says, some people are awake and they live in a constant state of amazement. I'm pretty close to that state, I said. I have magic and miracles and feel exhilarated by life.
So this is a very important statement that he's made, right? Some people are awake and they live in a constant state of amusement. What does that mean? In a constant state of aha. Wow, this is beautiful. Now, if you watch a child, the child is in this state constantly. So life is always interesting to a child. There is always something to do. There is always something to really be amazed about. There's something to really appreciate, something to be grateful for. If you see a happy child, the child is in this state constantly, and magic and miracles keep happening around children, right? If you see, all the children's stories are about magic, about all that stuff. Are we connected with that magic? We have lost that magic. We don't have that magic anywhere more in our lives. Are we in appreciation? Are we really wowing everything? Wow, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. The taste is so good. We are just stuck in the mundane, right? So we need to step out of it, get the magic back into our lives.
Tell me more, he urged. I told him about my new car, which I adore. It's a 2005 Panos Esperante GTLM luxury exotic sports car. They are made by the Panos family. Each is assembled by hand, each is signed by the people who make it, and each is given a name. My car is named Francine. I knew Dr. Hewlin would appreciate the love put into the car and the fact that it is treated like a living person. For him, everything is alive.
So again, for Dr. Hugh, everything is alive. And let me tell you, this is a fact from experience. I'm telling you that every inanimate object also has conscious awareness. The way you treat something, that is the way that it will treat you back, right? So you treat something with love, it will work for you. It will do good for you. If you treat it with, disdain, it's going to create a problem for you. And I've seen this over and over again. People, when I walk into their houses, there is depletion in the houses. The naval frequency is affected. They're not happy in the house. And ultimately, I ask them, do you appreciate your house? I always find in these cases that they're cribbing about the house. This is wrong with the house. I don't have enough space. There's leaking over here. There's this over that. There's this there. So they are constantly complaining about their house. Now, if you're not going to really appreciate something, that thing is not going to work for you. So we need to get into appreciation. We need to get into a love relationship with everything around us. So he says very clearly, for him, everything is alive. And let me tell you, it is alive.
I told him about going on the Larry King Live television show as a result of my being in the movie The Secret. He wanted to know what Larry King was like. I told him King is direct, friendly, street smart. I liked him. I went on and told Dr. Hewlin about the success of my books, such as The Attractor Factor and Life's Missing Instruction Manual. After a few minutes, he could see that I was just bubbling over with energy. What do you think is different now from you taking the first Ho'oponopono training? I thought for a moment and said, I could quit controlling it all. I let go. All I do is clean, erase, and have the intention to get to zero.
Beautiful. This is something that we read in The Shift also. So I have it written over here. He said, from entitlement, we shift to humility, from controlling to trust, from attachment to letting go, right? So over here, it's adding here is that we keep cleaning. We stop controlling, we start allowing. We stop putting effort, we go into effortlessness. We stop saying no, we start saying yes. And then everything starts to happen. The magic appears into our life. And when we are in that state, we are automatically getting into zero. Aisha, difficult for me to repeat it. I don't know what I said.
He patted my shoulder and smiled, in a way anchoring the moment by acknowledging what he felt was right for me. We started walking to my car, and after a few feet, he stopped and stared at me. You have a bounce in your steps, he said, almost in awe. You walk with springs. Well, I am happy to see you, I said.
So you walk with a spring in your steps. Now, have you ever seen a young child walking? They'll always walk with a bounce, right? They're enjoying things. They're enjoying life. Are we doing that anymore? We are constantly glum, complaining about stuff, not really appreciating stuff, not having gratitude about whatever we have, constant complain, right? Once you get into these states, the complaining will drop. Now, if you really see, if when 90% of the people, I'll tell you, when I draw the grid for them and I tell them, okay, now tell me, where are you operating from? 90% of the people will say the left side, and they don't even realize that they've been operating from the left side of the grid. That's what makes the grid so powerful, because it allows you to understand what is the state of consciousness, what is the state of awareness, where is your perception coming from, and that shift is what will bring the bounce back into our lives.
Aisha is asking you to read what is written on your board.
Okay, so it's entitlement to humility, control to trust, attachment to letting go. And of course, over here, he's added erase and clean.
Renu has her hand up.
Yes. Yes, Reenu, please unmute.
Bhaiya, what you've got on the board, can you put it on the chat? You're reading it so fast, I can't write it.
Acha, okay, I'm
It's so
repeating.
good.
Okay, I'm repeating. It says entitlement to humility, okay. So see, now if we are operating out of entitlement, कि ये तो मेरा हक है. Now if you don't get it, big problem, right? Now if you operate out of humility, if I have got it, I really appreciate that I've got it. I'm so grateful that I've got it. Total shift from the left side to the right side. Okay. The next one is control to trust. So if I am going to be controlling things, then I'm operating with the small guy. When I shift into trust, I'm shifting to the big guy. Right? Now, who knows more? Who's going to be able to execute better? It's always the big guy. We think that we control stuff, but it's actually a fallacy, because we do not know from where the inspiration came, from where that impulse to do something came. The more we are open to the inspiration, the better off we are, because we are shifting from controlling to trusting. And the third is attachment to letting go. Now, whenever we are attached to something, that is going to create pain in our life. This is something that Nagarji keeps talking about in the Vedanta talks also, that whatever you are attached to, right, will give you dukh. It will be a cause of pain to you. So the more detached you are, the more letting go you are. You know, you are in, theek hai to hai, nahi hai to theek hai. The more you are in that state of mind and consciousness, the happier you are. Because anything you are attached to will create pain.
We went to dinner and I told him I was disappointed that my book on P.T. Barnum, There's a Customer Born Every Minute, wasn't doing well. Joseph, you have to love it. I wanted my book to sell, so I didn't understand what love had to do with it. Joseph, if you had 3 children and one of them was slow in school, would you tell it that you were disappointed in it? No, I replied, and suddenly an insight hit me hard. My book is a child of mine, and I was saying it wasn't as good as my other children. I felt this to such a real degree that I almost began to cry in the restaurant.
Now, this is a very, very important part over here, that today, when as parents, we make comparisons between our children, we are doing ourselves a very, very big disservice, because we are not in going towards zero, right? We are criticizing, and that critical assessment is always going to create a problem in the lives going forward of our children. Now, I understand that in this concept, whatever happens to us, we are the creation. But when I'm doing biofield tuning and we get into the timeline, you'll be surprised as to what stuff comes out, which may be as simple as a sibling being born and the first child feeling ignored, and it creates a huge problem for the rest of the life of the child. Or maybe shifting a house, shifting a school, having a fight with a friend, falling sick, all these things show up on the timeline, right? So we have to understand that we have to be in appreciation. We have to be in gratitude for everything that is happening to us. And comparing our children, I think, is the worst thing that you can do for anyone, and especially your child.
You got it, Joseph, Dr. Hewlin said. You must love all your children. I began to feel terrible that I had alienated my child for not performing well in the school of life. I felt genuinely sorry. I began to say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you, in my mind to the divine, while holding a sense of my book in my heart. Later, when I got home and saw my book, I picked it up and held it to my heart, hugging it, loving it, asking for forgiveness, for not appreciating it, just for being.
So again, everything has life, right? And let me tell you one book, because it's in resonance with the other books. He's doing this to this one book will resonate in all the books that have been sold or are sitting in stores to be sold.
Later, driving Dr. Hewlin to my home area in Wimberley, Texas, he said he saw an elf in me. A what? An elf, he repeated. I'm used to seeing things that I don't see. He wouldn't call it psychic ability, but just an unfolding in each moment. The elf has big eyes and big ears. He wants to stay inside and not go out in public. That's the part of me that wants to stay at home and work on my computer and not interact with people. There's another part of you that likes the limelight, though. 2/3 of me wants to be on the Larry King and Oprah and get the attention I confessed. But another part wants to stay indoors and be reclusive. Your elf will keep you sane, Dr. Hewlin explained. People who want nothing but stardom will drive themselves crazy. People who want nothing but living in a cave keep their light under a bushel basket. You have balance.
So again, the point becomes that we need balance in our life. Okay, so there has to be equanimity between what we are feeling and what we are thinking. And that's what creates the real balance. When everything is on the same page, that's when we again have happiness and create peace and love and affection in our lives.
Later that day, I told Nerissa my love about my elf. What is the part of you called that likes to be on stage? She asked. I don't know. She reflected for a moment and said, I think it's called Sprite. Sprite? Yes, Sprite. It seems to fit. I laughed and had to agree. The next day, when I told Dr. Hewlin that Nerissa named my extrovert part Sprite, he laughed out loud and loved it. Sprite likes the light, he sang. The day after Dr. Hewlin arrived to my area, I drove over to meet with him. I found him sitting at a table with 2 retired Mexican women who seemed to be hanging on his every word. He motioned for me to come over. I got some coffee and started to sit in the chair beside him. He stopped me and asked me to sit in the next chair, one more chair away from him, but across from the 2 ladies. Tell these ladies what you do, he said to me. I told them about my books, my movie appearance, and how I try to help people find happiness. Tell them how you handle problems, he said. In the past, I used to try to solve problems, whether my own or someone else's. Today, I let them be, but I clean the memories that cause them. As I do, they get resolved, and I'm okay as they get resolved. Joseph, can you give them an example? My sister frustrates me, I confessed. She's been on welfare, had her home broken into, had her identity stolen, and more. She's not happy, and it frustrates me. I've tried to help by sending her money, books, movies, and even the DVD player to play the movies. She doesn't make any effort to change. But now I don't try to change her.
So
What
this is important, right? He says that in the past, I used to attempt to solve the problem, but now I let them be, just clearing my memories. And that's what creates the shift in them, right? So he's not attempting to change his sister anymore. He's simply clearing himself.
what do you do? One of the ladies asked. I work on me, I said. Now I understand that the life she has isn't anything she is doing. It's a program or memory that is being played and she's got in its web. It's like she's caught a virus. It isn't her fault at all. And because I sense it, because I feel her pain, it means I share the program. I have to clean. As I clean, the program will come off her too. What
So,
do you do to
so
clean?
anything that is happening to you is you automatically are part of the program. So this is very much like the movie Matrix, right? Where you were jacked into a program and the program was running and you felt that it was reality. Whereas actually it was not the reality. It was just something that was being run. It was like a virtual stimulation that you are in. So actually the reality that we think is reality, this 3D reality, again and again it is said in all the scriptures, etc., in Vedantic talks, it's all Maya, it's all our creation, right? And when we are getting into quantum physics, it is actually being proved that everything around us is actually not real, it's not there. But in our mind's perception, it is there. So it is there. So we need to transcend the programs.
What do you do? One of the ladies asked. I work on me, I said. Now I understand that the life she has isn't anything she is doing. It's a program or memory that is being played and she's got in its web. It's like she caught a virus. It isn't her fault at all. And because I sense it, because I feel her pain, it means I share the program. I have to clean. As I clean, the program will come off her too. What do you do to clean? All I do is say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you, over and over again. Dr. Hewlin explained that in the simple phrase, I love you, are three elements that can transform anything. He said they are gratitude, reverence, and transmutation. I went on to explain what I thought was happening.
So three things. As soon as you say, I love you, you are in gratitude, you are in reverence, because anything that you love, you'll put on a pedestal, right? You'll have reverence towards it. And because of that reverence, there is transmutation. So it leads from gratitude to reverence to transmutation. But you have to actually feel it. Just saying it, what in my view is not enough. When you do it with feeling, it becomes more genuine and it can really help you to transform yourself.
The phrases I say are like the magic words that open the combination lock to the universe. When I recite the phrases which come out like a poem, I am opening myself to the divine, cleaning me and erasing all the programs, preventing me from being here now.
So basically saying I love you puts you into gratitude, which automatically will open you up to receiving, because you are open to receiving when you're operating from gratitude, when you're operating from appreciation, when you're operating from the right side of the grid. And that's when the magic starts happening, because divinity can then play you, make you go in the right direction, make you do the right thing. Whereas the ego mind will automatically put you on the left side of the grid. It is going to drag you into its own agenda. But the agenda for the universe is much bigger than the agenda for you as an individual.
Should we stop?
Okay. We can stop here. 1 second.